I can think of younger days when living for my life was everything a man could want to do. I could never see tomorrow, but I was never told about the sorrows.
How can you mend the broken hearts? How can you stop the rain from falling down? How can you stop the sun from shining? What makes the world go round? How can you mend this broken man? How can a loser ever win? Please help me mend my broken heart and let me live again. I can still feel the breeze that rustles through the trees and misty memories of days gone by. We could never see tomorrow. No one said a word about the sorrow. How can you mend the broken heart? How can you stop the rain from falling down? How can you stop the sun from shining? What makes the world go round? And how can you mend this broken man? How can a loser ever win? Please help me mend my
Hello, thank you all for joining us during your lunchtime for our session about matters of the heart. Today, this is our third in our Break for Health series, and today you are joined by about 100 people, or you will be, who've signed up for this session about learning how to be heart healthy. You'll have lots of opportunities to get your questions answered by local experts. Community Health Foundation is the proud sponsor for Break for Health, as you'll see in the next slide. And I'm Joan Elder, your host for today. We're excited to again have Nettie Carter-Smith as our moderator, and we really appreciate the technical support of Alex Miller from Shiftology. Alex is available to help with any technical challenges you have during the session. So you can enter those in the Q&A box and he will get right on it. So your Zoom screen is looking a little bit different today. You'll see in this next screenshot that this is set up as a webinar. And at the bottom of your screen, you'll find a toolbar that looks kind of like this. You can open the chat box to find information, to see information that's being posted by our presenters, but you won't be able to enter your own comments into chat, but you will be able to use the Q&A box to ask questions and respond to some of our polls. You can also see that the session is being transcribed, and you can turn this off if you like, by hitting the CC button on your screen and clicking Hide Subtitles. I do want to mention that Dr. Naravetla has made a very generous offer to provide Salt Kills, his book about heart health, books to people who ask questions. So we are encouraging you and challenging you to enter questions into the Q&A box. I want you to know that the session is being recorded and will be available on YouTube from a link on the Community Health Foundation website for later viewing. And now I want to welcome Nettie Carter-Smith, who will start us off by having the panelists introduce themselves. Nettie?
Thanks, Joan. Hey, everybody. Happy Hump Day. It's February, and we all know what February is. February is Heart Health Month. Lots of things regarding the heart we're going to hear about. It's also Valentine's Day, and something that is also near and dear to my heart, February is Black History Month. So without further ado, let's meet our expert panelists. We will start with the guru, Dr. Neravetla, and we'll make our rounds through the other gurus that are here this afternoon. Dr. Neravetla?
Thank you, Nettie. Thank you for inviting me to be on this panel. And thank you, Joan, for thinking of me. And happy to participate in this panel because, as you know, prevention of heart disease is very close to my heart, literally speaking. So I am Dr. Neravetla. Those who don't know me, I run the cardiac program in Springfield, Ohio. A cardiac surgery program, more specifically. I started this program with the help of Mercy Health back in 1998. So it's 20 years plus that we're running cardiac surgery services in Springfield. And we have one of the top of the line cardiac services in the country. We have many awards to prove that. So anybody listening to me don't have to leave Springfield to get their cardiac care for any better. I got into the issue of prevention of cardiac disease about a decade ago. It occurred to me that this is what I'm doing day in and day out, working on people's heart is really preventable. So I got on this bandwagon of prevention of heart disease. And one particular area seemed to require most attention, most widely ignored, is the problem of high blood pressure. And how high blood pressure contributes to heart disease and why you get high blood pressure. And that's what led me into the problem of our salt intake. And further led me into how big a problem salt intake is in Black American community. So I've written a couple of books. One is Salt Kills. The other one is Salt, Black America's Silent Killer. And I write a blog at saltkills.com. I'm actively engaged in this kind of panels and conversations throughout the year. And I'm happy to participate in this discussion and field any questions regarding how to prevent heart disease.
Thank you. Cassidy?
Hello, my name is Cassidy Nickel, and I am a health planner at the Clark County Combined Health District, and I work on the tobacco grant there through the Ohio Department of Health. And a portion of that grant focuses on cessation, which is another great way to prevent heart disease and other issues for your heart. So thanks so much for having me today.
Jackie.
Hi, Nettie. Thanks again for having me. It's been great to be on these panels. It's a lot of fun. So I'm looking forward to today. But I am Jackie Dahlberg, and I am a dietitian here with Mercy Health. I work in Springfield Weight Management. So I am the dietitian and program coordinator for our both surgical and diet-based weight loss programs. So obviously diet, as Dr. Neravetla alluded to, has a huge role in helping to prevent and treat heart disease. So I'm happy to be here and happy to see all of you. So thanks very much.
Great. Thank you. Bobby.
Well, good afternoon, everyone. My name is Bobby Parrott. I'm the Director of Rehabilitation Services here for Mercy Health in our Springfield-Urbana market. It's a pleasure to be here today. This is the first time I've had the pleasure to be on this panel, so I'm glad to be here to be able to answer various questions regarding a healthy heart. I have a background in exercise physiology, as well as I'm a practicing physical therapist for the last 10, 11 years. So if you have any questions after the presentation, please feel free to reach out and contact me, and I'll make sure you get the answers.
Great, thanks. And last but not least, Rochelle.
Hi, thanks so much for having me, and thanks for inviting me, Joan. I am the executive director of Wellspring, and we are a 50-50 agency. 50% of our budget is mental health services, so counseling services. And the other half of our budget is prevention services. So we work in the school system, working on prevention of mental health and substance use disorders. I'm also a mental health therapist. I've been a mental health therapist for 20 years. So thank you.
Great, thank you. So let's jump right into our conversation. You know, we've been doing this, I don't know, this is our third one. We always like to start with a warm up. So let's get our poll questions out and give the audience an opportunity to answer some questions. I'm going to ask the first question to Bobby. Bobby, how many virtual meetings have you attended this week?
Way too many to count.
Right.
Yeah, I think just today alone, I've had 4.
Okay. Anyone else want to try to take a stab at that? Dr. Neravetla, how many have you had?
This week it's probably a 5th one.
Too many to count?
Virtual meetings.
Okay, gotcha. Let's see how the attendees are doing. Take a look at our results. Though they're probably maybe still coming in. Okay. 7% too many to count. Bobby, you're in that group. I'm more interested in the last question. What best describes your heart health today? So that's pretty, obviously it's the reason why we're here. You can look at the first and second responses. So I'm gonna ask Dr. Neravetla, let's talk about heart disease. What is it and why is it so common?
Well, the most common variety of heart disease we talk about is heart attacks, where a part of the heart muscle doesn't get blood. That's a heart attack. So when a part of the heart muscle doesn't get blood, that part of the heart muscle actually dies. That is a heart infarction. And the heart is a muscle, is a pump, pumping all the time. But a part of the muscle is dead and is replaced with a scar, that part doesn't pump. So you lose part of the heart muscle. So if you have a big heart attack, that could be the end, just one shot. But if you have a small heart attack, you could survive and go on to live. But you lose a lot of the heart muscle function. You live in a second condition, which is the most common, is heart failure, where your heart function is not sufficient to keep up with your daily requirements. That is heart failure. So heart failure comes from 2 different reasons. One is a heart attack that I just mentioned. And the second is when the heart is fighting high blood pressure. High blood pressure is like you working out in a gym. The heart is pumping against resistance. So just like in the gym, the heart muscle keeps on growing and growing, gets bigger and bigger. And that leads to a condition where the heart muscle loses its ability to relax before it pumps. Before it pumps, it has to relax. It cannot relax well. So that is a type of heart failure coming from purely from high blood pressure, has become very, very common. In fact, the most common heart failure nowadays is from that problem, simply from effect of high blood pressure and heart muscle. So between the two, you can have both. You can have heart attacks and enlarged heart. Both ways it causes heart failure. So your heart failure. These are 2 most common heart problems. And heart disease is the most common cause of death in America and the rest of the world. The number 1 cause of death in men and women, both, since the 1980s. It has surpassed cancer. It used to be the number 1 cause of death, especially in women, but women caught up. So since about the 80s, heart disease has become the number 1 cause of death worldwide. So I'll stop there.
Okay, so Dr. Neravetla, so some of the signs of heart trouble, what are they and when should I, seek a doctor? I work out, obviously I get my blood pressure going, I, try to do the right things, but what are some of the things, what do I look for? How do I
Well, that's a great question. So in terms of prevention and early detection and treatment, there are 3 different arms to this. First, I'm engaged in treatment. I cut people's chest open to be very gross and cause a lot of pain and fix the blockages. That's the ultimate way of fixing it. There's a step before that is detection and treatment. That's what you're referring to. And there's a step before that is prevention. So we'll talk about that. So in terms of detection, the symptoms of heart attacks are like having pain in the chest or your arms or your teeth. And those are the most classic symptoms. If you're going for a walk or working out, cleaning your driveway, you're shoveling the snow, and you feel that pain. But that is not actually, I would say more than half the time, people have heart attacks without having any of these symptoms. So when I describe the symptoms, I don't want you guys to wait until you have one of those before you see a doctor.
Right.
Right.
That's good.
So before that even, the other part of the heart failure I was talking about, I was focusing on, heart failure is even more subtle. The heart failure is simply you just don't have enough energy. And you think you are a year older than last year, so you can't do the same things as you used to do last year. That's a very common way people explain yourself away from getting good health care.
Right.
So if you are not able to do things that you were able to do last year, you might be in heart failure. Okay? So either of those situations. Third situation, your first level relatives, like your brothers, sisters,
Okay. Yes.
family,
Hereditary.
have had a heart attack in a young age, meaning 40s or 50s. You don't need any symptoms. You need to have a screening testing done to see if you're at risk to heart disease.
That's a good
So
point.
these are three different things. One is if your friends and if your first generation relatives have heart history at a young age, you should get screened regardless.
Okay.
Number two, if you're not able to do what you were able to do last year, you may have a heart problem. You should check it. Number three is normal activity or just little strenuous activity causes discomfort in your chest, in your jaws, in your teeth, etc. In your arm, you are seeking attention.
That's a
Those
good.
are three things.
Let me pose a question that was asked by a member of the audience. And the question is, wondering based on the news reports about the long-term effects of COVID on the heart. I understand the effects are not fully known, but wonder if you have seen any issues locally of recovered COVID patients.
Yes, we have, unfortunately. Not as many as some of the other cities, but we certainly have our share of that. So COVID is just being positive for COVID test, not necessarily mean that you're actually having the COVID infection, the disease, the symptom itself. But when you do have the effect of the heart or the lungs, they kind of work in tandem. If the lungs are not working right, your heart is stressed. If your heart is not working right, your lungs are stressed.
Right.
So kinds of problems we have noticed is developing clots inside the heart, developing clots inside the blood circulation of the lungs. So there is a disruption of clotting mechanism as a result of COVID. From these clots, the clots can go cause a heart attack, just like a blockage does. And the clots can travel to different parts of the body, causing strokes, causing kidney dysfunction. And these are the kinds of heart problems we are noticing. The clots in the lungs can prevent oxygenation. That is the biggest problem, probably the number one cause of mortality, is we're not able to maintain adequate oxygen in the lungs. The lungs are supposed to help us oxygenate our blood and get rid of the carbon dioxide. They're not doing a good job of that. So these are the types of problems we've seen. We have operated on some patients with active COVID going on, and we are very nervous. When you put them under anesthesia, the lung problems get worse.
Right.
And we try very hard to get the people who are on active COVID to reach a state where the COVID is inactive or under good control before we need to put them under anesthesia. But sometimes we don't have a choice.
Right. That's a good point. And thank you for that response, answering that question. That's a good segue. Because Cassidy, I did want to talk to you about, obviously we know smoking impacts our lungs, but how does it impact the heart? And then I've got a piggyback question just to kind of talk about the COVID and if we've seen any impacts of people that have smoked and how that COVID impacts them. So the first part of that is, we know it's bad for your lungs, smoking, but how does it impact your heart?
So smoking is actually a major contributor to heart disease. And actually the CDC states that 1 in every 4 deaths from heart disease is caused by smoking. So smoking contributes to heart disease in a couple of different ways. It can cause your blood to become more sticky and just make it more likely to clot, which is bad for the heart. It damages the cells that line the blood vessels, again, contributing to clotting and all of that. It can thicken and narrow the blood vessels and also increase the buildup of plaque in your blood vessels. So it's like cholesterol and stuff that gets built up, potential to clot and then cause heart attacks. So all of those combined or just one or the other really causes your heart to not work quite as properly and contribute to creating heart disease.
Okay. Have you seen anything in terms of COVID patients and smoking and what their recovery period would be?
Yeah, so we have seen, I'm not sure about locally, but I know some studies have shown that people who smoke are at a higher risk for a more severe illness when it comes to them potentially getting COVID, because COVID and smoking both affect the lungs. So if you're smoking, your lungs aren't working quite properly. Your heart might be a little bit damaged from that as well. If you get COVID, it's going to be potentially harder for you to fight off that infection and have your lungs work properly. You might get more of those breathing issues, that kind of thing. So there is definitely a potential for individuals who smoke and use tobacco products to have a more severe illness if they were to get COVID.
Okay, thank you. There is another question in the chat. You guys are doing an awesome job of communicating and having a conversation with us, which is exactly what we want. But Sir Green asked, does heart muscle ever regenerate? Dr. Nervetla.
Yes, I saw the question. Thank you for that question. Heart muscle, as I explained in the opening statement, when it dies, it is replaced by a scar. The scar does not function as a muscle. And there are a lot of research going on, a lot of money poured into how to make muscle out of the scar tissue. So heart muscle, unfortunately, once it's dead, is gone for good. No two ways about it. However, a blocked artery which is supplying the heart muscle can build its own alternative pathways to supply blood. That means you could have a heart attack and a blocked artery, but nature can itself build a detour around the blockage to continue the blood flow. And sometimes the heart muscle that is dead is not completely dead. It's kind of paralyzed or is patchy dead. Some is dead, some is alive, but starving for blood. In those circumstances, either by building a bypass by surgery or by opening the artery with a balloon or a stent, or lastly, by simply the nature itself building a new pathways, that part of the heart muscle that wasn't working before is now working, okay? So sometimes that is confused as dead muscle has recovered. No, it is not entirely dead. But you cannot tell the difference that easily, okay? You should not give up on a dead muscle that quickly. You cannot differentiate by usual common tests when the muscle is completely dead or there's a potential to recover, okay? There are sophisticated tests to tell us that, but by and large, it is not always possible. So you should always try to reestablish the blood flow to a part of the heart muscle that is considered dead and see if that recovers within reason, okay? If it requires a major effort to do that, that may not be worth it. But within reason, we should try to reestablish the blood flow as quickly as possible. Like for example, at Mercy Health, we run what is called a door to balloon time. That means a person comes with a chest pain and we want to rush that patient to the cath lab and open the artery as fast as possible. So minimize the dead tissue and get the rest of the tissue recovered. So that is measured as door to balloon time. And I'm pleased to tell you that Mercy Health, we are one of the leaders in how quickly we respond to heart attacks and reestablish the blood flow. So that is hopefully answers your question. Okay.
That's good. That's a good point. This is probably a good segue. Maybe we can move. So we obviously we have gotten a pretty good understanding of the heart and the disease. Let's try to move to our diet and exercise, how we can strengthen our our heart, and what are some positive things that we can do eating and physically to take care of our bodies. So let's do our poll question number 2. Let's put those up and give people the opportunity to answer that question. But if we can just take 30 seconds, and I'm opening this up to the panel. There was a question that was asked, what are healthy blood pressure numbers and what are unhealthy blood pressure numbers? So if we can take 15 seconds to answer that, and then we'll transition into nutrition and exercise, that would be great. Anyone?
Yeah,
Jackie, yes.
Oh, no, Dr. Naravella can if you'd like. Yeah, that's great.
No, go ahead, please, Jackie, please go ahead.
So typically we say less than 120/80 is normal blood pressure. Once we start climbing north of that, then we start to, see some concerns. And so, that pre-hypertensive stage, starts at that between 120 and 140 on your top number, the systolic, and then between 80 and 90 there on your bottom number, which is your diastolic. So, and then of course, north of those, north of 140 or 90, and then we consider that hypertension. So, a variety of different treatments could be in place. Of course, we'd recommend first things like diet and exercise, but then of course, blood pressure medications might be, required as your blood pressure gets higher and higher.
Okay. Does diet have an impact on blood pressure?
Absolutely.
Okay.
And it can, and that becomes too, some people are more sensitive to changes in diet for their blood pressure. Some people are not quite as sensitive to changes in diet. Some people's blood pressure is affected a lot by their genetics. But a lot of times, yes, diet and especially exercise can play a huge role in improving blood pressure for sure. And so just like Dr. Naravella mentioned, salt is the biggest thing that tends to affect our blood pressure.
Right.
For sure. So cutting back on your salt intake can definitely help reduce your blood pressure, which can obviously then help your heart.
Okay. So let's take a real quick look at the results of the poll questions. Just put those up. And actually, I think everybody knew that maybe the second question was sort of kind of a trick question, which is actually true, which is good. And obviously you can take a look at the other answers from question 1. But let's move into it. Again, it's a good segue for us to press forward and to talk specifically about heart healthy eating.
Yes.
Can you give us some examples? Can you talk more about that?
Yeah. So when you think heart healthy eating, I mean, there's so much when it comes to diet that, and you read so much about, little snippets here and there in the media about, oh, do this or, hey, do that. And so it can be very confusing. So kind of to simplify, 3 main things that I think of and that I instruct most on in terms of improving your diet. And really that's improving your diet for heart health, of course, diabetes risk and other things. But when we talk healthy diet, first key thing is, of course, your salt intake. So most people that I talk to, the first thing they say is, oh, I don't add salt to anything. And that's great. But salt comes mostly from foods that we're already eating. It's already in the food. So you have to be really aware, look at those food labels. American Heart Association, the recommendation is 1,500 milligrams or less if you have high blood pressure or any heart disease or history of heart disease. That's really low. 1,500 milligrams is fairly low sodium intake. For the general healthy population, under 2,400 milligrams is a good place to start. But most Americans are way higher than that on average in terms of what they're taking in. So anything pre-packaged, think of all the stuff in the middle of the store in a box, canned foods that are not specifically, no salt added. And now, especially a lot of frozen prepared stuff, that comes with a sauce. If it's just straight, no sauced frozen vegetables, typically fine. But anything that comes with a sauce and seasonings, that's where you're going to find a lot of salt in foods that we eat. And then, of course, eating out, even if you're choosing healthier options, eating out a lot of times, you just add a lot of salt to stuff. So you have to be aware that even when you're making a healthy calorie choice, when you're eating out, sometimes it's not so healthy for sodium. So, that's kind of first line, start looking at your sodium. And the next thing is fats. So healthy fats. The pendulum on fats keeps shifting back and forth. So at one point it was just, no fat, low fat, everything. And so now the focus is more, it's healthy fat. So it's not necessarily about how much fat necessarily is in your diet, but the type of fat.
Right.
So two different fats. So we have fats that come from animals and fats that come from plants. So animal fat tends to be the fat that is not as healthy for our hearts. It's that saturated fat. Fat that comes from plants, so vegetable oils, olive oils, things like nuts, peanut butter, olives, avocados, those are all healthy fats. So they help with your heart health. They also help your skin and hair and nails and your GI tract. It helps you absorb fat soluble vitamins. So some fat is a good thing, but it's about type. So lean on that plant type fats and try and pull back on any fat from animal sources. So that includes meat. Any kind of fat that comes from any meat, with the exception of fish. Fish is a healthy fat, but also things like dairy, the fat from cheese and milk and those kinds of things as well, making sure you're choosing low fat there.
So 2 points, Jen.
Yeah.
2 points. One, so if I get fish, because you said it's healthy, right?
Yeah.
And fried in peanut oil, is that good?
It's not hateful.
Okay.
It's not hateful, but
No.
You're having a healthy fat with your fish.
Right.
Frying it in a peanut oil is not necessarily adding an unhealthy fat, although sometimes when you fry things to a high temperature, you can get some trans fats.
Okay.
But then the part of that is when you're putting it in fat and frying it, you're just adding more calories. And so
Well, that's where Bobby comes in.
Yeah. And so another issue when it comes to diet, outside of just eating more plant foods in general, your weight has a huge issue. It's a huge issue when it comes to heart disease. So being overweight for anybody becomes an issue on your heart. It makes your heart work harder for sure. So any weight loss, honestly, regardless of how it comes about, tends to improve your overall health. Okay. Obviously we'd like to do that in a healthy method. And
Right.
Right.
So we are. So this is my other point, and then I'm going to switch to Bobby because he's going to help us get our bodies moving so that even if we indulge every once in a while, Dr. Neravetla, every once in a while, that is okay.
We're all about balance, right?
So hang on 1 second. So how much salt equals 1,500 milligrams in teaspoons?
Okay, go ahead, Jackie, sorry.
I was saying, no, so about 2,400 milligrams is a teaspoon of salt. So 1,500 milligrams is less than a teaspoon.
Pump the brakes.
Yeah.
Pump the brakes. Pump the
When
brakes.
they don't add salt to your food, it means don't add salt to your food. Like a shake is too much. Like,
so how about Mrs. Dash? Mrs. Dash?
Yes,
Mrs. Dash is good.
Perfect.
Okay.
Pepper, garlic, onions, curry powder, pick a seasoning.
Jeez.
Yeah.
Oh my goodness. I don't
Let me just chime
that,
in a couple of things when you get a chance.
Okay, go ahead. And then
Jackie, as usual, did an outstanding job of describing the different fats and the salt. 2 points I want to make here before we go to the next panelist. So the 80% of the excess salt we are consuming comes from eating things that have already salt added. You're not adding the salt, okay? It's already in the package. So as Jackie pointed out, we need to look out for those things. So American Heart Association has published a thing called Salty 6. Like salt and sugar, salty, number 6. It's an infographic that tells you 6 most common things people consume, not realizing there's a lot of salt in them. Okay. Now, number 2, 1,500 milligrams is the limit of how much you could get away with. People often confuse that you require 1,500 milligrams of salt. No. Normal human beings do not have to add salt or sugar to meet their calorie requirement or sodium requirement. When it comes to how much you will get away with, depends on your genetics that we talked about. For example, Black Americans are extremely salt sensitive.
Right.
So you need to watch out for that.
Right.
So and high blood pressure is the #1 health problem in the world.
Right.
High blood pressure, 1 billion people with high blood pressure. Right. And most widely ignored cause of heart disease. So we need to look at high blood pressure as a preventable disease. Last point I would make is we produced a 1-page thing called Petition to the Restaurant Association to engage in prevention hypertension. It's on our website. It's a 1-page thing. I would encourage the people on the call to download that one single page, go to your regular restaurant and give it to your server or your chef and say, please do your part to reduce hypertension. Look at this paper. And I've done that a few times. And generally, the restaurants comply with your request to produce low salt or no salt options.
Great.
Efficient
Bobby,
restaurant.
Bobby, help us. So obviously we've got to make some modifications with our diet and to make sure that our heart is strong and pumping. Get us there. Talk to us about exercise, aerobic exercise. Give us some suggestions.
Yes. So to kind of parallel what Dr. Novella has said, the heart is a muscle. So I always give this analogy when people come for their first training session in our wellness center. Think of the heart like your bicep. If I have you do some curls, a few of them, you're tired after a few times. Well, given about 3, 4, 5, 6 weeks, I ask you to do a curl. Real easy, but by now you've already kind of increased the weight or the intensity. So the same premise is for your heart. We have to start slow. It's a muscle. The stronger we can get the heart, the better efficient it is to pump the nutrients in the blood throughout the body and help get the body, all the wastes kind of out of the body overall. A few things I always tell people is, I believe 4 to 5% of people that have New Year's resolutions actually get through the whole year with their New Year's resolution because they try to make such a dramatic change overall. And if you start very small and make very small changes, so you only require, according to the American Heart Association, 150 minutes throughout the whole week at a moderate intensity. So if you break that down to just 30 minutes a day, 5 days a week, you'll get the intensity that they're recommending as far as the dosage that they're recommending. Doesn't mean you got to do all 30 minutes at one sitting.
Right.
So the easiest thing to do is say, hey, maybe walk 5 or 10 minutes in the morning, take your dog for a nice walk, walk at a brisk pace. Maybe at your lunch, we want to get you up, get you moving.
Right.
Lunch, walk another 10 minutes. And then the evening, another 10 minutes or 15 minutes in the evening. You want to try to get 30 minutes a day, or like I said, at the end of the week, about 150, if not more, minutes for cardiovascular protection. There's many different exercises that you can do. Obviously, walking is probably the easiest, and it's the easiest mode to get people moving because you can do it at work. You can do it in between, during breaks. You can do it after work. The good thing, too, is you can pull a friend in with you, and now you guys can be on some sort of how many steps that you want to get done for that day.
Right.
I recommend 10,000 steps has been kind of that hallmark in research. You hit 10,000 steps, then you get some sort of protective because it kind of equals out to about 5 miles a day that you're walking.
Right.
I always recommend start off very small, but you need to realize that your heart rate needs to get up to a certain level in order to get that benefit. So there's many ways you can do it. You can look on Google to kind of figure out your heart rate. We always look at taking 220 minus your age, and then take that figure and times it by 60 to 70%. That gives you a little bit of an interval, maybe to 75%, an interval of a moderate intensity. So when you're walking, and a lot of the new iPhone or iWatches has a heart monitor on it, you can kind of look down and see where your intensity is. If you're not at that level, you need to pick it up a little bit.
Right.
If you're walking with somebody and you're having a conversation like you and I are, you probably need to pick up just a little bit more to where about the third or fourth breath, you got to kind of catch your breath as you're walking. That's kind of telling you you're at a better intensity overall. Not to say you're not getting some benefit of it.
Right. Okay.
The question I always get to is about strength training.
I was just about to ask that. Are you right here?
I'm reading your mind.
You're right
Yeah.
here. I was
Yeah.
just about to ask that. I work out in the morning and I try to do some walking, get on the treadmill or what have you, but tell me about the strength training.
Strength training could be anywhere from 2 to 3 to 4 times a week. So you can also make your strength training into a cardiovascular exercise. Now, I wouldn't recommend it right away. I'd wait till you have a baseline of fitness before you do that. Hear of circuit training, where you go from one station, like maybe one resistance machine to another.
Right.
As I decrease the time in between, so me going from a machine to the other one, if I speed it up, my heart rate is a little high. So I'm getting not only a cardiovascular
Mhm.
benefit, but I'm also working the chest, the arms, the legs, whatever you're tailoring. So the main thing is people need to start slow, because you lose your motivation if you just go, you try to do too much and maybe you get sick. And then once you lose that motivation, you kind of fall off of your goal overall.
Right.
The last thing I'd say is I always tell people, we work a lot with Jackie's group that comes over, and they receive an hour-long presentation on physical activity, how to get going for weight loss reduction. And I always tell them, you need to set goals. You need to set up your long-term goal and your short-term goals. It could be 2 or 3 short-term goals that are supporting your long-term goal overall, which ultimately is probably
Right.
weight loss.
Right.
47% of Americans are considered overweight when you look at their height and weight overall, which, as Jackie was saying, that just puts a lot of extra stress
On the heart.
hard to work. So
Yeah.
you establish goals. I always call it the accountability mirror. Put that list of goals right on your mirror. So every day when you go up there, and I can't do my hair very long, but when I'm facing it's staring me in the face, and it makes me more accountable to make sure that I'm pushing myself to reach those goals and exercise.
That's a good point. That's a good point. So let's transition to the last part. So obviously we've talked about the muscle of the heart. We've talked about ways that we can keep it strong and stay healthy and exercise and eat right. But let's talk about the real heart, the heart, our emotions, what we're dealing with, how we feel. We've got a broken heart. Let's move to that section. So let's go to our third poll. And I'm going to ask all of the panelists to answer question 2. We'll just start with Dr. Nira Vetla and go to Cassidy and move all the way down. So what do you do on a date night with your partner or with your friends? What do you do? I can be more specific. What are you doing Sunday? It's Valentine's Day. How about that?
As a full-time heart surgeon, that's such a rarity. And I don't know, it's been quite a while that I've actually gone on a date night. But I would go out to eat in my favorite restaurant that serves no salt food.
I was just about to say no salt. We know, no salt.
Yes, there are restaurants that serve no salt food. I go and eat them. My wife is actually much bigger stickler for no salt than I am, so that I don't have to convince her to eat low salt. So that is number 1. Number 2, I would go see a movie in the regular theater if the theaters are open. If not, we just come back home and watch a movie of our choice.
What's your top pick? What's your top pick?
We came from India, so we still have the roots back there, although we've lived here almost half a century now, but still like to catch up on some old movies from India.
Nice. Cassidy?
I would say pre-COVID, maybe like go out to dinner somewhere or something like that. Now probably pick it up and take it home. But also include something active in there, whether it's just going for a walk in a neighborhood or
Nice.
even going for a hike, like something like that, something outdoors as well.
Good. Jackie?
Yeah, so this Sunday we'll be at a hockey game. So Sunday hockey. So yeah, that takes up most of our set. Between chasing kids, yeah, the date nights are a rarity for sure. But yeah,
Right.
yeah, we just like to go out to eat. Maybe like a wine tasting or something. Just we like trying new food, trying, things like that. So we like little fun things like that, or trying a restaurant we've never tried before. So
Stuff.
yeah.
Yeah.
And come home in a movie. I always like to watch movies at home anyway. I don't like to
Right.
curl up on your own couch. Yeah, absolutely.
Good stuff. Bobby?
I agree. I think a movie and probably dinner. Prior to COVID, I think, like Cassie said, we'd probably be out doing more active stuff.
Right.
COVID has actually, I think a lot of us has decreased a lot of our activity overall, and just kind of adjusted. So I think dinner, movie. I got 3 young kids, so it's very hard to find a date night at times.
Right.
And then, probably Titanic would probably be our biggest movie.
Wow. Okay.
Never makes it through the movie. That's all right. Too long.
Yeah. Rochelle, take us home. It's
All right,
Valentine's Day Sunday.
Pre-COVID, it would have been dinner out at a museum or like a architectural walking tour, something where we learn something, like not in our chosen work field, but learn something cool about art or architecture. This Sunday night, I'm making crab and we're going to watch a movie because, well, it's COVID.
Right. Nice. Really nice. Let's take a look at some of the answers. Casablanca, Philadelphia Story. Okay, Beauty and the Beast. Lots of people would go out to dinner and a movie. You guys nailed it right on the head. We had a couple people answer in the chat, The Notebook and Sleepless in Seattle. All great movies, great movies. So let's get to the emotional part of the heart. Rochelle, can you talk a little bit about the differences between infatuation, love, and lust? So honest confession, I've had all of those feelings where I thought, oh, I'm so in love, but it was really infatuation. And then it was probably a lust thing, okay, because we're all adults. It is what it is.
Right. So
talk to us about that.
So lust is really more about sexuality and just,
Put my stuff out there.
You just put yourself out there. So thank you. Appreciate your honesty. So that's really more a sexual thing. Infatuation, you can be infatuated with someone and then fall in love with them. For me, infatuation is if you aren't annoyed by your partner strewing dirty laundry all over the floor, that's called infatuation. You're like, oh my gosh, I'm so in love. And you're picking up dirty socks and underwear. That's how I kind of describe infatuation, because, you're not bothered by that, in a typical relationship that lasts about 4 months.
Right.
And then you decide, yeah, I really do love this person, but this is annoying.
Right.
Or you decide that, well, maybe I'm not that in love with this person. Maybe I can overcome some of these faults, because everybody has faults, but during infatuation, you really don't recognize those as much.
Right. Okay. Yes, I agree with you. Especially if you're married for, more than 6 months, it's like, it's not so cute anymore. It's just not. It's just not.
I've got 22 years in. So.
Okay. What a blessing. What a blessing.
Right. A blessing for sure.
So we've talked about the different types, obviously love and like and lust and infatuation, but I've got a question. Sometimes my loved ones get on my nerves. Okay. Like I have one nerve and they shred it into like 15 little like segments of nerves. But anyway, how do you deal with that? What can you do? Give me some suggestions. Give us all some suggestions.
Some suggestions. So the first suggestion I'm going to say is, like, after we get done with this, is to go to YouTube and search out Brene Brown. I'm sure so many people have heard of her already.
Yes.
Brene is Brene and then Brown, her last name, and search for the video Empathy versus Sympathy. Because I think sometimes we get in this mode as human beings of, well, I'm so much more perfect than you are. And, kind of get in that, like, maybe you're not trying your best. And sometimes people are trying their best, even when they are shredding our last nerve. So understanding where that person is coming from in a non-judgmental way, which is really very difficult to do.
I was just about to say that. It's challenging.
It's very challenging, but understanding the difference between empathy and sympathy. And then the second thing is to also search Brene Brown and look at boundaries, because sometimes you just need to say to that needy loved one, tonight I need a night off. Tonight is not a night I can talk to you about your problems. I'm sorry. Let's set a time to go out to lunch this week. Or you really need to set those firm boundaries, or you can just drain yourself to a point where you become unhealthy and you are putting your immune system at risk for whatever is out there. Because it definitely takes a hit on the immune system when you kind of overgive. So a couple of, those two things for Brene Brown. And then I say, really the third piece to when people get on your nerves is self-care. But we want to take good care of ourselves. So if you're feeling that, like, I'm so exhausted, right, emotionally, maybe not physically, is to take that 30-minute walk, or take a 30-minute bath or shower, or listen to some really good music that you enjoy, to just like take care of yourself and love you.
Good points, good suggestions. Bobby.
Yeah, I was just going to add to that. I have 3 young kids, and they all are homeschooled, not homeschooled, but they're all doing virtual right now. So a lot of us with young kids, we come home from work after 8 hours of work. You go right into helping the kids with virtual homework, and it's 8 o'clock at night before, and you're very stressed out. So I've been recommending to a lot of my staff, a lot of the clients that come in to work out more in the evening, to do a little bit more cardio in the evening, because one is going to help lower your blood pressure. It gives off, depending on what you're working out, it gives off those endorphins. It kind of gives you a nice little stressful release in a sense to help kind of manage the day overall, or get ready for the next day with the whatever's going on.
Right. Okay, good point. Good add-on. Well, I just want to ask this one question to all of the panelists, and we'll give you, I don't know, maybe 30 seconds to a minute to answer this. How do you, obviously as experts, help support a friend or family member who's trying to develop a healthier lifestyle? And I'll start with Cassidy, the baby of the bunch.
Oh gosh. Okay. So I think that someone who I support a lot in a healthier lifestyle, we actually kind of help each other, is my boyfriend. So I went from being a collegiate athlete to now transitioning into the workforce and all of that. He went from being pretty active in college to now in grad school, heavier workload, all of that. So we're just experiencing a whole new world at this moment, with COVID on top of it. Yeah. So we try to come up with healthy recipes and share them with each other, and try to get just healthier overall, cook with oils rather than like butter or something like that, include healthy fats, all of that into our diet, as well as encourage each other to be active for just a little bit every single day, whether it's a walk, whether you go for a run, go to the gym, whatever it is, just
great.
Try to do a little bit each day.
Yeah, thanks. Jackie.
Yeah, so I feel like, I do it all day long with clients and patients. So, but when it comes to your own family, it's different. But yeah, I think the first thing is that when somebody really wants to make their lifestyle healthier, it has to come from them. You can't see something in somebody and say, oh, hey, you need to lose weight and you need to do this.
Right.
You can motivate them, we give them lots of information. But when somebody comes to you or a family member says, hey, I really need to start exercising. That's great. That's awesome. And provide encouragement, offer to do it with them if you're available, but just be that supportive, person, as opposed to somebody always giving them advice or saying, you should do it this way or you should do it that way. Sometimes they're reaching out to you, or they're saying, hey, I want to do this because they just want your support. They just want that person, their doctor's telling them what they should do. Right. Somebody else is, at work is, telling them, oh, hey, why don't you try this? And sometimes they're leaning on that family or friend because they just want support. They want somebody to be their cheerleader. So I just try to be the cheerleader, and keep them going. So, yeah.
You're a good cheerleader. You could be mine.
I cheered.
I'll call you later.
I cheered for Ohio University.
Okay, there you go. Whoop, 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 whoop. I'll call you later. Rochelle.
I think the very first thing is to come into any kind of relationship as non-judgmental. So if someone's reaching out for help for you, to try to complete that blank slate of, I'm not here to judge you, I'm here to support you. And then, from a mental health standpoint, so many times we diagnose people as unmotivated or lazy, or we label them, which is why I said we really should go for the non-judgmental piece. So I've had friends who have come to me because I am like a faithful workout person, and they have totally dropped out. Part of the thing is because, they're not ready, as your point, or it's not their time. But part of it is maybe they just need to see their physician, and maybe they need some medication for depression, or maybe they need to see a therapist before they make the commitment to do diet or exercise, because it's not necessarily a motivation issue. It is a mental health issue. So.
Gotcha. Okay. She's so soothing. She's got my heart.
Yeah. And I will just second that, because I feel like a lot of times in the medical community, sometimes We do. We want to throw that unmotivated label on a lot of people. And there's so much going on with so many people that I feel like, especially in the world with diet and exercise and getting people to make changes, if mentally they're not there, if they don't have the mental health support
Yes.
In their life, it's really hard to be successful with diet and exercise changes. So that's kind of like, I wish that was a bigger piece of the puzzle for so many more people.
Mhm.
Yeah.
That's a good point.
Yeah.
That's a good point. Dr. Neravetla, I'm
Yes,
coming to
ma'am.
you.
I've been waiting for this. My answer is live and lead by example. If you cannot follow, if somebody is having a problem, I can do it, you can do it, I can do it, I have done it. This is how you do it. If you're not prepared to do it yourself, you cannot tell anybody to do what to do.
Yeah.
So you see this button. So I walk with this button wherever I go, in the hospital, in the office, in the airport, in the shopping mall, in the weddings, and wherever I go. Okay. And I don't mind getting in people's face. And when they get offended, I say to them, I don't mind yelling and being on a face. I would rather do that than cut you open or see you suffer all the consequences of bad diet.
Yeah.
So I get them. So I say, young man walking around with a soda pop and potato chips, I would stop him, give him my card, and tell him, you're going to need that blue pill very soon, right? Unless you stop this. What blue pill is it? When the moment is right, you need the pill. When the pill comes, the moment is gone. If that's what you want, you need to stop this. So I don't mind being direct because I'm a surgeon and I cut people open. I do very hurtful things. So this is a better way to prevent. So I try to tell all my physician colleagues, nurses, and everybody else constantly, that we have to live by example. Walk the walk before you talk the talk.
Well, you're walking that talk, that's for sure. You're doing it.
I'm doing my part, Nettie. I'm trying to do my part.
Yes, you are. Yes, you are. I'm gonna have to talk to you. I'm gonna have to go clean out my cupboard. And I got some Mrs. Dash though. I got some Mrs. Dash. I got to, work
Mrs.
on
Dash
the
is
others.
good.
Yes, I use that a lot. So we're almost close to wrap up, but there was one question that I wanted to pose, and anyone can answer this. The question is, what is your suggestion for a person who works with people every day who have many issues that they need help with, such as insurance help? What are some suggestions that we could offer for a person?
Is the question, how can we find them help because their insurance won't pay for some of the programs? Is that what?
How to decrease stress? How are we able to lower their stress level? Because they have other issues, and health insurance is another, which just adds to the stress.
Sure. I think if you just, start slow with exercise and incorporate some of the things Jackie talked about as far as watching your diet, overall you make these subtle changes, then you start to incorporate, once you start noticing those subtle changes, then your mood changes because
Right.
it starts an avalanche of good things because you start to feel better. You start to feel like you look better, your body image.
Right.
Self-care improves. So I think overall just start slow and with some activity and just kind of watch what you eat.
Yeah. Slow and steady wins the race.
And I think to piggyback on top of that is that a lot of people think you have to make a drastic change to make a difference. You have to lose 50 pounds to improve your health. And really, it's the little things that you do consistently that make a big difference. So if you just don't add salt, or just go for that 10-minute walk once a day. I'm going to cut out one snack or substitute one healthy snack a day. It doesn't have to be a huge thing, but if you do it consistently, it'll make a difference. Yeah. So don't get stressed out about big. Just think little that you can do. All the time.
Baby steps. This is great. Great. Joan, I'm going to turn it back over to you.
Awesome. This has been such an informative and enriching session. I want to thank Nettie, all of our panelists. You've given our audience so many great things to think about and some wonderful resources. I have this slide up on your screen because if you have a question that has not been answered yet, you can reach out to these local experts and find out, get some personal advice or help with the items that you're concerned about. So these are our local resources. And then if we take a look at the next slide, I just want you to be aware that there are a couple of places where you can go just for general help finding local resources, such as Community Health Foundation's Health Resource Guide, which is available on our website, or you can request a hard copy. And also United Way has their wonderful 211 number, which you can call, anybody can call for information and referral services. And then I just want to say a special thank you to our sponsors and people who have contributed to raffle prizes. First of all, the Springfield Family YMCA has provided 30 guest memberships for people who have registered. So the first 30 people who registered for today will be contacted by the Y with an opportunity for a guest membership. And isn't that a great way to start off on a healthy routine, is start visiting the Y. Diane Van Acker and Community Health Foundation have contributed some fun raffle prizes, which we have some Valentine's chocolates, we have some heart healthy nuts over here, and some Kroger gift cards. And so if you will take some time, it won't take long, but to enter, to go ahead and fill out our survey. The survey is there in your chat box, and it will also be in an email following this session that will be sent out to all of you. So I just want to thank you all again for spending some time with us, for learning something new, and for doing what you can to live a more healthy life. Thank you, and enjoy the rest of your day. Bye-bye.
See you guys. Thanks.
Thanks.
Happy Valentine's Day.
You too. Thank you very much. Thank you. It was just fun. Thank you all.
Yes.
Good to see all of you.
Thanks to you too.
When living for my life was everything a man could want to do, I could never see tomorrow, but I was never told about the sorrows.
How can you mend the broken hearts? How can you stop the rain from falling down?
How can you stop the sun from shining? What makes the world go round? How can you mend this broken man? How can a loser ever win? Please